Good morning, Mr. Dimitraș. I'll give you a moment to make sure your headset is on and that your language is set appropriately. Good morning to everyone at today's public hearing of the Prosecutor Vetting Commission. My name is Christopher Lehman. I am the chairperson of the commission, and I declare this session to be open. Our commission is established under Law 252 on the external evaluation of judges and prosecutors. Article 22, paragraph 13 of that law provides that this commission will assess candidates for the Superior Council of Prosecutors Selection and Evaluation Board according to the procedure and criteria regulated by Law 26 of 2022 on measures related to the selection of candidates for position of members in the self-administration bodies of the prosecutors. The hearing is being conducted under the Commission's rules of procedure for evaluations under Law Number 26 of 2022. The candidate who's present at today's hearing is Marcel Dimitraș, a candidate for the Superior Council of Prosecutors Selection and Evaluation Board. Mr. Dimitraș, good morning and welcome to you. I'm joined by my colleagues on the commission. From my right, Nadezhda Hryptievsky, to my immediate right, Irmantas Makalonias, to my far left, Cornel Lebedinsky, and to my immediate left, Saskia de Vries. The commission is also assisted by members of its secretariat. The hearing is open to the public and members of the media. The hearing will be conducted in interpretation into Romanian and English, and I ask everyone to speak slowly and clearly to facilitate accurate interpretation. The proceedings are being recorded, and the recordings will be made available on the Commission's website, www.vettingmd.org. That will be done within 3 days after the hearing. Mr. Dimitraș, during the hearing, one or more members of the Commission will ask questions to you. I would ask that you please answer them truthfully and completely, as your explanations are important to the Commission in verifying your ethical and financial integrity. In formulating our questions, we'll take into account your privacy where required and possible, the privacy of your family members and close persons. So we'll leave out unnecessary details regarding ID numbers, bank account numbers, specific addresses of real estate, and the like. And for your own protection and privacy, we would ask that you do the same. At the end of the hearing, we'll provide time for you to make a closing statement. Let me start briefly by reviewing the evaluation process. The Commission initiated its evaluation process in your case on 22nd of December 2023 by notifying you by email and asking you to complete and return the ethics questionnaire and a financial declaration form. You did that, returning the questionnaire and declarations on 28 December 2023. As part of our evaluation process, the Commission also obtains information from many other sources, for example, the National Integrity Authority, the State Fiscal Service, the General Inspectorate of the Border Police, and other public institutions, financial institutions, and open sources. The Commission assesses the information it obtains from those sources for relevance and reliability. The Commission also sent you 3 rounds of questions on the 29th of March of 2024, on the 17th of April, and on the 26th of April, all of which you responded to in a timely fashion. On the 22nd of May 2024, we notified you, invited you to attend today's hearing. At that time, we notified you of the specific topics that would be addressed at the hearing. Mr. Dimitraș, thank you again for appearing at the hearing today. I will begin with a few basic questions for you. And of course, I ask you to respond in a complete and truthful manner to the questions. The first of those questions is whether you wish to make any additions or corrections to the answers you have provided to the Commission in your declaration, your ethics questionnaire, or your answers to us regarding our request for further information.
Good morning to you too. There's nothing for me to add. As regards the ethics questionnaire, I've already put down there everything that I wanted to share with you, all the nuances, and all of that was already shared in that questionnaire. I've also filled out the declaration for the last 5 years, and there's also based on the declarations I have filed earlier.
Thank you. Are your answers that were provided by you in the 5-year declaration and the ethics questionnaire that you returned on the 28th of December 2023 still accurate as of today?
Yes. Yes, because, well, there is nothing else for me to add to that, other than maybe clarifying certain details. I could answer as to that. But otherwise, what I've declared continues to be valid.
Thank you. I will turn the floor over to my colleague, Irmantas Mikalonis, who will follow up with additional questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Mr. Dimitraș. First of all, I would like to thank you for already provided information to Commission's written questions, but still we have some questions regarding purchase of a vehicle model of Volkswagen Tiguan in 2015. According to the information available to the Commission, you own the Volkswagen Tiguan with registration number XKX151, made year 2010, registered in 2015. In the annual declaration for 2015, you declare that you bought this Volkswagen Tiguan for the price of 120,000 lei, equivalent to 5,740 euros at the medium exchange rate at that time. Could you confirm this information?
Yes, I do confirm. Just I want to make a small clarification. It was 6,000 euros, but the average at the time of declaration, well, it was about 6,000 euros, but at the time of declaration, it was equivalent to that amount.
And some additional questions. Could you specify when and where you obtained information about the selling this car?
Thank you for your question. In my written answers, I did not give too many details about that, but the car was purchased with certain defects. That was the idea. At that time, I had an acquaintance, amicable relationship, who was into this activity of buying and bringing cars and spare parts, and it was his suggestion. He told me, proposed that there is a car with certain defects, and if you want, we could go take a look at it, because he had knowledge about all the subtleties. So it wasn't purchased from a website or something, or from some publications. It was, well, it happened at the suggestion of this acquaintance of mine, who had this idea. He told me it's an urgent sale, the car has some defects, that's why we can negotiate the price. There are some risks, obviously, related to a rather global defect of that car, but he told me we could fix it. And that was the idea. The market prices, well, of course, I looked into that and I compared to market prices. Honestly, I looked to websites as well, but leasing companies, some other companies or persons that are dealing with purchasing and selling, or purchasing in order to resell and make income on that, the prices were much higher when I looked at those aspects. So the real market value of cars like that in a good technical condition, not perfect, but functioning with quite significant mileage. Because the car, and I still own it today, was manufactured in the beginning of 2010. And from June or July 2010, the manufacturer started to have the same model, but with some restyling on the bodywork, something additional related to the gearbox, another type of transmission, and the price was, let's say, from 9 to 10,500. The ones that were being sold by individuals who had such cars. Of course, there were other prices too, but that depended on how well it was equipped, the mileage, and some technical subtleties. All of that was taken into account. That was so it was risky, and actually that was confirmed in the end, because further on, over the years, I had to invest repeatedly into the defect of the transmission. It was related to the gearbox, and ultimately it was found that it was hit either with a stone or some metal objects. That's why it had such issues. The car had these technical condition issues. All these aspects were fixed starting in January 2016, and then over time it had some other defects, but which resulted from this initial one. So the idea was that if you, let's say, you buy a new gearbox, that would have been extremely expensive. Not even to mention the prices announced by the official dealer. The reality is different. They give some guarantee, but the price was exaggerated for me.
Can anybody confirm you already mentioned information regarding these mentioned circumstances?
Unfortunately, and also I answered in writing, through this acquaintance, I asked for the help of some professionals. They were not working for authorized car body workshops, because I avoided some additional expenses in this way. Altogether, if I'm not mistaken, the gearbox was dismantled and repaired. Like, it was dismantled 3 times, repaired twice, some parts were replaced. I understand what you are asking about, but I was not able to predict that one day I would need to, because, and I'm sorry, because at least for that time, I could have documented it, or at least to get a defect report from an authorized service. So except for the person who suggested me to buy it and who participated later on and brought me some spare parts, because he was also bringing spare parts from Europe, especially from Poland, from Germany. And maybe that professional, if he is probably somewhere, but those 2 people are the ones that could confirm those matters about the problem and the fixing of the problem over time.
Were you familiar with this car seller? And do you have any of the seller's contact information?
I don't remember. I don't have the data. It was some time ago. It was almost 9 years, more than 8 years ago. I had some data somewhere, a copy of a proxy, because the car was not sold by the owner. It was a sale based on proxy. So the person representing the seller acted based on a proxy on behalf of the seller. From what I remember, that person also was into this kind of business, buying cars, maybe broken ones, bringing them up to a condition that was sellable and then selling them. So they knew each other, so that seller knew the person who suggested me to buy this as an initial option.
In the first round of written questions, you were asked to provide the sale purchase contract from 2015 for the Volkswagen Tiguan. You explained that the sale purchase contract for the Volkswagen Tiguan remained with the Office for Vehicle Registration in the registration file. Is that correct?
Yes, I don't know why I didn't take the contract, and honestly, I don't know what was the amount written in there. I don't know what that person representing the seller wrote in the contract. I don't remember. I did not pay attention to that, honestly speaking. I had a receipt and a copy of a proxy of the person who was representing the seller, but after 3 or 4 years, I did not need it. I mean, I needed it for the statute of limitations for a 3-year period in case if some problem happens, and I did not need to keep it afterward, and this happened more than 8 years ago. That's why I didn't keep it past that time, and I don't know what was the amount written in the contract by the person representing the seller, honestly.
So, if I understood correctly, you don't know what the price of this car was listed in the sale purchase contract. Is right?
I don't know the price. I can only presume like traditionally it was being done to write 10,000 lei or something like that in order not to pay the tax, probably, for the sellers not to have capital gains. It was a widespread practice back then.
So how much did you pay the seller for this car?
In 6,000 euros in cash, as I declared. Actually, I declared I adjusted it to 120 lei because I took the average exchange rate at the time of declaration, and I declared it in lei, but the payment was done in euros.
In the first round of written questions, you were asked to explain the source of funds needed to purchase 2 vehicles, including Volkswagen Tiguan, and to provide the confirmation documents. You explained that the Volkswagen Tiguan was purchased using savings that were made for this purpose. Could you specify which years of savings you used to buy this car? And how long did it take to save for the purchase of this car?
Now I can't say precisely what amount was saved and for which specific period. It was quite long because it was before my wife got employed, so the amount was saved during a longer period. Until 2017, actually, we were not declaring, or the declaration of assets and personal interest did not include the column on cash that you held. Therefore, I can't say precisely the period, but it was a quite long period of time over which we gathered certain savings. And we also counted, on selling the Renault, which was sold in the beginning of 2016, in January, if I'm not mistaken. And after that, we started to repair the defects for transmission and gearbox. Well, that's how it started. Over time, some of the subtleties happened, such as admission, gallery, and other specific aspects related to car and the longer mileage, problems that come with the longer mileage for this type of car.
If I understood correctly, you used savings for buying this car, but you haven't declared savings in your annual declarations. Could you explain why you didn't declare savings?
I actually said, and I will reiterate, until 2016 or until 2017, if I'm not mistaken, there was no section for that in the Declaration of Assets and Personal Interests. It did not require, or we did not have the obligation to declare the cash held or cash savings made until then. Starting 2017, for the year 2016, the Declaration of Assets and Personal Interests started to include this special column, and every time you held money in cash that was bigger than 15 average national salaries for that period of time, those amounts were supposed to be declared.
In the second round of written questions, you explained that the seller was selling the car in the emergency and that vehicle had mechanical conditions, and the mechanical conditions influenced the price. It has some bodywork damage, suspension issues, and transmission issues. Is that correct?
Yes, the biggest and the most expensive problem was the transmission gearbox, because that's the most vulnerable place, and well, as it was found later, these defects started from a hit, from a blow, from a stone or some metal object. So, but the biggest problem and the most expensive problem was the one related to transmission and the gearbox. Something about suspension, some new envelopes were needed, new tires, and we had to paint the bodywork. Some, as I said, admission gallery for a new car was purchased because it was worn out, and it was always showing a sign that you have an engine issue. But the most expensive one was the transmission and the gearbox. That was
when and by whom this repair work, as you mentioned, regarding transmission, suspension issues, was carried out? Who could confirm this information?
As mentioned, I did not go to specialized car workshops. Again, it was suggested to me by the acquaintance. I got contact details of a person who worked either for the dealer or someone who could fix such issues, and that person is an individual. He was doing repairs. He wasn't repairing only my car. Generally, he was repairing gearboxes, especially automatic gearboxes of various car models. I don't have his contact details. I don't know where he is, because this happened in 2016 and early 2017. So about during that year, it has been dismantled, put back, some spare parts changed, and so on.
How much did you pay for the repair work?
The first amount that I invested initially was almost 25,000 lei. That was the first one. But altogether, during 1 year or more than a year, all those parts that were replaced with painting and all those things reached almost 55,000 lei altogether, up to 60,000, but not more than that, in a period of 1 year or a bit more than 1 year.
According to the information on the website www.99, MD, the market value of the car model Volkswagen Tiguan made between 2009 and 2012 was estimated to be between 30,000 euros and 18,000 euros, equivalent to 242,000 lei and 335,000 lei. Currently, similar cars are listed on sales platforms for around 8,500 euros to 12,500 euros. Estimative 163,000 lei to 240,000 lei. How do you explain the difference between the car contract price and the market value?
Yes, I paid attention to this question. Actually, I received it, I think, in the second round of questions. Somewhere, I think I have already said that, but I will repeat it. First of all, I believe that these prices are exaggerated. I don't know who would buy a car that is 14, 15 years old for this kind of amount. Because you have to take into account that the mileage, for the mileage they have, the price is exaggerated. Usually sellers, the honest, the ones that are not exactly honest, they are changing or rewinding the mileage. I don't understand why that is being done. Maybe there is some explanation because the car market fluctuates from one year to another. Spare parts are more expensive now, a deficit of cars. I know I wouldn't buy a 14, 15 years old car at a price of 8,500 euros, or as you were saying, sometimes it's even more expensive. I think that is exaggerated and unreal, because at that price, I don't know how much a new car would be, but I think this is like half of a new car. I did not check the prices for new cars, but I believe that. And we have to take into account, as there are many companies that are dealing in cars, using trade-in programs, exchanging cars, and it is a paradox, because they, in the ad, they show a price, like, let's take the average of what you were saying, 10,000 euros, but if you go with your car there, they estimate it at a price that is at least 40% smaller than they show in their sale ads. So this is a business that does not reflect an optimal price. I don't know who would take the risk to invest in a 14, 15-year-old car, an amount like that. I can't explain that. Probably that's how the market is, that's the market policy, this is how they build those prices.
The last question is, do you have something to add or clarify regarding this issue?
I think no. Indeed, I understand that I can't prove with records. I understand that the burden of proof is on my side too in this situation. But if I had if I could have predicted 8 years ago that I would have to show and document all these moments, of course, I would have prepared, at least in terms of documents. I would do some objective estimates, objective meaning coming from an expert or professional who is licensed to work in this field. But in reality, to avoid more expenses and additional costs, to avoid some exaggerated expenses, I believe were not specific. I used services that are much cheaper than a specialized car service, or not even to mention services provided by an official dealer.
Thank you for answers.
I'll ask the other commissioners if they have any additional questions. Okay, Saskia?
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Dimitraș, my colleague also asked, I think on 2 occasions, whether there would be anyone who could confirm what you told us about the car because of the lack of paperwork, which I totally understand because it's a long time ago. You mentioned this acquaintance who pointed out the car to you. Can you tell us a little bit more on how this happened? Did this acquaintance take you somewhere to see the car? And where was that?
I knew that person for a longer time because previously, when I had the Renault car, and even earlier than that, back in 2003, 2004, that's since I know him, I was asking this person to provide me car repairs. I mean, he wasn't doing repairs himself, but he had some people that he worked with. So I knew him from there. And while talking to him, I said, you know, I'd like to sell my Renault and look for another car. So after that, it didn't happen immediately, but after some time, he called me and said, you know, there's an interesting option, but we need to go and see it together. So I counted on his knowledge in all these specific technical matters. I counted on him and the risk and the investment perspective, outlook for the future. Otherwise, with no certainty or assurance coming from him that we will be able to repair it, it will cost like this and that, there's a risk, but it's worth it. This is how it happened.
But I asked you, where did you go to see the car?
We went in Chișinău municipality. It was sector with what we call a cooperative of garages, so it's like a bigger place with many garages. So this person had several boxes there. He or she had some spare parts and some cars. So they were all also doing repairs in that garage cooperative. There were some boxes where people provided car repair services. And they were working together. They knew each other in the specific field of selling and repairing cars.
So, are you willing to give the Commission the name and the maybe address details of your acquaintance?
Yes, of course I can. I can provide that data.
You also mentioned, and that's also in your statements before, is that the person who was selling the car was doing it by proxy.
Yes, from what I remember, he was representing the seller based on proxy.
And do you still have a copy of that proxy?
Unfortunately, no. I also had a copy of the receipt, but I don't have them anymore. I kept them for more than 3 years, and I explained that why. In case if a problem would happen, the general statute of limitations for some objections against the seller is 3 years. That was the issue. So I didn't keep those papers afterwards. Sorry.
I understand. When you went to see the car with your acquaintance, did the seller point out to you that there were defects on the car?
Yes, of course he told me it had defects. The initial price they asked for was 7,000 euros because he knew the problem, he knew the defect that existed. He did not, from like the impression that I got, or maybe he was hiding, but he did not tell us why the problem happened, why the transmission had these issues. It was later on that when a person was trying to fix it, he found about that. So we negotiated based on the existing risks and potential of a bigger investment when the repairs looked at first sight. So that person, who is also a professional in this, or at least has very broad, very extensive knowledge and has a lot of knowledge about technical subtleties. I know that several carts were being brought. I know they were bringing like on big trucks, especially from Europe. They were putting like smaller vehicles on big trucks, and they had a lot of cars in that cooperative of garages. So we brought, I don't remember, 10 or 15, maybe more, but it's not about this car only. And there was a fluctuation, probably. I can't explain.
So, if I understand correctly, you went and saw the car, this other cars, but also this car. You were interested. They asked for 7,000 euros, and then you had the car checked for defects before you decided to buy it. Is that correct?
First of all, I knew that the car had that defect. And that is what influenced the price. In addition to that, the person that I went there with, he helped me make an estimation, a more realistic estimation. We didn't look at other cars. We looked at that particular car. We were not looking for a different one. So it was rather a matter, an occasional matter, given that I just mentioned that I wanted to sell my Renault and maybe to buy something else instead. So that's then what led to the other things that followed.
So you could provide us with information on the acquaintance who helped you with this buying this car. Would you also be able to find out where the location was where you looked at the car?
Yes, I mean, if they are still there, if they continue to work there, perhaps this garage cooperative is still there if they didn't demolish it. I mean, I think it is still there. There are places like this all over town where there are these garage cooperatives, so to call them.
Okay, thank you.
I have a couple follow-up questions too, just to clarify in my own mind where we are. I think you've stated several times that you no longer have the contract for the purchase of the car. I never even took the contract. I did not that contract away. That contract, when we went to that office for the registration of vehicles, I did not even take a copy of the contract with me. It just remained there annexed to the car registration file. What was important for me was to have that receipt confirming. But unfortunately, I did not keep it. But you saw the contract and read the contract and signed the contract?
I've seen the contract, but I did not read it because it was like a standard boilerplate contract. I only realized now that I did not look at the amount that the seller put down in the contract, but I don't exclude that it was a small amount because that used to be the practice. A lot of them, upon sale, would put down a small place to avoid paying the tax and so on and so forth.
To the best of your recollection, the price in the contract was less than what you paid for the car?
I can't say for certain because I don't know what the price was actually there. It's just, I think that perhaps a smaller price was indicated. As a rule, this has often been the case. There were many situations like this around the sale and purchase agreement when the sellers put down in the contract a smaller price than the one that was actually paid in order to avoid that looking like capital gain, because they would have otherwise been supposed to pay the capital gain tax. So I don't know what was the price put down in the contract. I did not pay attention to that.
But to the best of your recollection, that's the situation here with your contract.
Well, I can't say for certain that it was that, because I have not seen the amount that was written in the contract. I cannot tell that it was smaller or bigger or what exactly there was specifically. I did not look at it. For me, it was important to have a document written by the person representing the seller confirming that they received that amount from me.
So your testimony is you don't know what the amount of the car was in the contract that you signed for the purchase of the car.
Exactly. I don't know. I did not pay attention.
No more questions from me. Any other questions from any other members? Yeah, Nadia.
There's something that I would like to clarify. You don't have, by the way, to say the name now, but you were asked in the written correspondence, in the written questions, you were asked for contact data and the name of the seller of the car, and you stated that you didn't remember. And so you can't remember not even the name, not at all. He's not using the microphone. I can't remember the name. I can't recall the name. It has happened such a long time ago. I mean, that was not the owner. That was a person representing the owner on the basis of that power of the proxy. So I just wanted to have that document, the receipt proving how much I paid, just in case something happens, just in case an issue emerges. Because you know how things work here. Not everybody is perhaps that honest, and other times there can be something even more serious than that. It's either that I didn't understand what you earlier said today, but you said that there was someone who you've been going to for a number of years in a row to have the car fixed and have a consultation, isn't it right? Yes, precisely. So do you have some sort of a relationship? Or, well, no, we don't have a relationship. It's only over the years I've been like a loyal customer in that period of time. So even to this day, when there are some issues, some questions that I need to ask, I go to them because... So if you go to them, you don't remember the name? No, I mean, I'm not talking about the person who... I don't have the data of the person who sold me the car. But the person who suggested me to buy that car, I know that person, and I knew that person even before I bought the car, because I would going to them to have my car fixed, my Renault fixed even. So he doesn't have anything, and he can't recall who the seller was. Well, honestly, I did call him after the questions came in, and he also didn't remember some specific details, because he said, you know, we see hundreds of cars every day, every month, every year. So he didn't remember, because if he knew, I tried to find out from him. If he had that information, it wouldn't have been an issue. It's only, I'm sorry that I did not regret not having kept the documents, but that's how it happened.
Let me just check if anybody else has any other questions. Thank you, Mr. Dimitraș. Now give you opportunity to make a brief closing statement.
Thank you very much. This is an exercise that is quite interesting and Well, certainly certain things, certain innovations in terms of evaluation, in terms of figuring things out. Well, there are things that come up. But the first thing that I want to say, though, is that I'm grateful to you. Thank you for all your hard work. I've looked into the case, into my evaluation, into the evaluation case and case file, and I realized that actually there's quite a lot of work that was done for this evaluation. But going back to what I've said, that had I known that along the years, at some point in the future, 3, 4, or maybe 8 years later, had I known that I would be the subject of such an evaluation, had I known that some procedures like this will happen, that had I known that, I would have kept the documentation, I would have prepared somehow, I would have sought some conclusions from specialists in the field to have them and to feel freer, to be able to address questions like these. But unfortunately, I did not have the possibility to foresee this. I must say that the questions that were raised, the questions that were raised, they were all provided answers to practically in the declarations that I've also been filing over the years, and since 2010, I think, or 9, when we started filing declarations, but then in 2012 is what is closer to what we actually do in terms of filing declarations of assets and interests. So I think this is what I wanted to say. I do understand your questions. There is lack of certainty, and I understand that the burden of proof is not on you, it is to a great extent on me. And so far as I am the one being evaluated, but unfortunately I was not able to. It's not that I was not able to, I didn't know that at some point in time in the future I would need to have the documentation, some conclusions from some experts. Well, that was all as far as my closing remarks are concerned. Still, I would like to thank you again for this evaluation work and for the questions that you asked. Thank you.
Thank you for your participation in the evaluation process and at the hearing today. The Commission will now deliberate on this matter and issue a decision in due course. So I will close the hearing. Thank you very much.